I'll hand over to Grace. Really, thank you so much for joining. And you've also joined a couple of our coffee breaks as a guest as well. So it's really lovely to have you presenting this one.
I was going to say, Katie, thank you so much for having me. I was going to say, it's always lovely just to kind of get into a room and chat with people, and especially about authentic confidence. It's one of my favorite topics in the world. So so hello and welcome everyone. Thank you so much for joining us, especially on such a lovely day. Like part of me is like, oh, I just want to be outside with my feet in the sunshine. So really appreciate that you guys are still kind of joining us for this session. So I know that a lot of you are also in the middle of your workday. So I think just before we get started, just take a moment to breathe and relax. Maybe just have a sip of your tea or your coffee and just, take a few moments just to take a few deep breaths. Because I think sometimes things can be manic, especially at this time of year where kids are going back to school and everything's kind of kicking off again. And I think also maybe just take a moment to notice the other people in this space and kind of give them a mental hello. A lot of people talk about Zoom fatigue and, feeling disconnected on online calls. So let's just take a moment to kind of be here with everyone. So whether they're a familiar face or a new face, or if they don't even have their camera on, that's also fine. But just realize that that you're all women that are here to learn something new together and to support and empower each other. So kind of smile as you think about the fact that the other women in this space are also welcoming you and supporting you in your learning. It's always great just to kind of see some faces and to kind of just be connected, even if you're working from home or, behind a computer screen all day. So as Katie said, I'm Grace, and I'm a certified professional coach and the founder of the Work, Life and Leadership Coaching. And the work really focuses on empowering professional women to bring confidence, balance, and purpose to their lives. So before I became a coach, I actually worked in financial services for about 10 years in South Africa, Bermuda, and the UK. So the South African accent is what you're hearing here, as a chartered accountant. So my experience with big and small finance companies kind of combined with my coaching experience meant that when Katie and I were first kind of chatting about what I would bring to this coffee break, I had to think about it for quite a long time because I had a lot of thoughts and a lot of things that I wanted to kind of talk about. And during that process, I kind of thought about, what are some of the things that my clients bring to coaching sessions? And confidence and authenticity are definitely resounding themes that come up again and again. So I thought that I would kind of focus in on authentic confidence. And if you're here because, you're kind of feeling a bit lost or overwhelmed when it comes to feeling comfortable with who you are, or if you've been battling with self-assurance, just know that you're not alone in your struggles and you're in the right place to just start moving forward and thinking about authentic confidence potentially in a slightly differing way. So before I get carried away, which I probably will, with all things, authenticity and confidence, I just wanted to introduce myself a little bit more. So a few things about me. I love skiing. I love playing squash. I'm a hockey player. I'm a mother of a fur baby called Millie. And I'm also actually an expecting mother of a non-fur baby. So after spending quite a few years kind of climbing the corporate ladder, I realized that chasing those goals didn't really align with my authentic self. And we'll talk about what an authentic self is a little bit later. So I decided to transition into a role that did align with who I wanted to be. And that was supporting women who feel like I had, like they weren't really being authentic to themselves. And to pursue that change, I qualified to become a certified professional coach with the Institute for Professional Excellence in Coaching, or also known as IPEC. And all the concepts that I'm going to be sharing with you today are what I learned during my coaching program with IPEC, or kind of my interpretations of what I learned with them. So just at the beginning, before I kind of dive in, I wish I could kind of share everything that I knew about authenticity and confidence in the next, 45 minutes or so. But there's just so much to talk through, and it is a very, very personal topic. So if at the end you're interested in kind of learning a bit more, or if you have any questions, or if you just want to stay in contact, please make sure that you add me on LinkedIn or pop me an email so we can just kind of stay in touch. So that being said, let's get going. So we're going to look into authenticity, confidence, and then we're going to look at them separately, and then I'm going to bring them together and kind of see how that works. So let's start off with authenticity. So before I dive into all the detail, I just want you to take a few moments to think about the following. So grab a pen and paper if you have pen and paper. If you don't, that's also totally fine, just so you can kind of think about it in your mind. But I'm going to give you probably about 3 minutes or so to write down the answers to the following questions. So why do you want to be authentic? When are you most authentic? And what does authenticity look and feel like to you? Let me maybe pop those into the chat so everyone has them. So it's, why do you want to be authentic? When are you most authentic? And what does authenticity look and feel like to you? So yeah, at about 1:15, we'll come back together. So just have a little bit of a think. Perfect. I know 3 minutes was like a really short period of time to think through all of those, but I'm just curious, who would like to share something that came up for them as they were kind of working through those questions?
Shall I go first? Shall I kick it off?
Yeah, for sure.
I think being authentic is, to me personally, it means not being a chameleon, not adapting to your surroundings just to please other people. So often in social situations and also work situations, it's quite easy to mirror the other person because it feels comfortable. Your communication style, or whatever it happens to be, you sort of mirror this person. I'd rather have the confidence in myself to think, actually, no, this is the way that I would like to present myself, or this is the way that I would like to communicate with this person, rather than kind of adapting around them because I feel a bit uncomfortable.
I love that. I love that whole comfort, right? So often I think authenticity does have to do with comfort, or not being authentic, saying something that might rub someone up the wrong way, or, create friction. It's sometimes so much easier to be accepted than to kind of say what we want to say. Definitely, Katie.
And similarly, I had written down something similar, that I feel most authentic when I feel welcomed and comfortable in my surroundings.
That made me smile. I was like, oh, you love that feeling, right? When it's almost like a home feeling. You just feel home. I love that, Cara. Fantastic. Okay, so it's important to think about all of these questions because they tell us a little bit about our view of authenticity. Because believe it or not, we all kind of have a slightly differing view, or it could actually be greatly differing view of what authenticity is. And you kind of heard that between Katie and Cara, right? So they both kind of had similar views on authenticity, but there was also kind of like nuances that kind of come through. So let's quickly look at each question, and kind of as a bit of a like spoiler alert, but we're going to ask ourselves the same questions when we're looking at confidence later. So when I talk through these questions, I'm not just talking about applying them to authenticity, but also to confidence. And actually, to be that honest, you can apply it to almost anything for that matter. So firstly, the first question was asking us why. And so why is an incredibly important question to ask ourselves, because it gives us insight into what is motivating us to be authentic. And if we don't have a clear and solid reason as to why we want to work on authenticity, then when things get tough, we could easily give up, or we could lose focus on being authentic. So Jay Shetty, who is a British author, he's a former monk and a current life coach, he often talks about digging into your why. And basically, you can do that by stacking why questions. So, for example, when Katie said earlier that it was important to her because she didn't want to be a chameleon, digging into that answer would say, okay, so why is it important to you to not be a chameleon? So you're kind of using your answer to the last why question as your next why question. And you keep asking yourself why based on your most recent answer. So just to let you know, it does get pretty uncomfortable and it feels a bit strange as you keep asking yourself why, but keep doing it until you kind of find this nugget of truth that's really driving and motivating your want to be authentic, because that's really going to be the thing that you can kind of use as like a North Star or a Southern Cross, to kind of direct you and keep you on track. With the second and third questions, knowing when you are being authentic, what it looks like, and also what it feels like. I think often we think about what things look like, but we don't actually think about how they feel. That's what I loved about Kara's comment about like feeling welcome. So it's also about knowing in situations when you feel authentic. And then what you can do is you can start to dig in to what is actually helping you to be authentic in those moments. And then you can work on bringing those aspects into other areas of your life where you don't feel like you can be authentic. So at IPEC, when we talk about authenticity, we're looking at how we can be our best selves. And it's really about knowing who you are and how you want to express yourself. So there's actually two kind of key parts of the authenticity puzzle, if you want to call it that. So the who and then the expression. So the who, that's really taking time to understand who you are. And often people think this is the easy bit of the process, right? Because you know who you are. Like, I'm me, I'm Grace, I'm a coach, I'm a squash player, I'm a mother to be. But the thing is that it's more than that. It's really digging into who you are underneath these roles that we play in life, and getting incredibly specific about our values and our strengths. So it's important to realize that when you're kind of looking at your who, it's easy to get distracted by the roles, by the mother, the businesswoman, the aunt, the sister, or the boss, or, whatever role you kind of give yourself. When looking at your who, it's important to make sure that you're focusing on your inner self and putting aside the roles that you play. So if you were kind of to strip away all the outside layers, what's left on the inside? So your deep inner who is a part of you regardless of the role that you're in. So who we are can kind of grow and develop, and we can kind of shape it, but we can never really lose it or fully change it. So for instance, being a boss is a role because it can be taken away from you. If you start a new role and you don't have anyone working underneath you, then in theory, you might not be a boss anymore. Or if you're a hockey player and you actually decide to give up hockey, then you're not really a hockey player anymore. So those are both roles. And once you start to understand that your true inner, like who your true inner self is, then you can consider which roles actually really align with who you are or who you want to be, and which don't. So similarly to the question we asked earlier, where we were looking at when are you most authentic, it's about noticing when we align with a role that makes us feel most like ourselves. So as an example, my top values are connection, learning and growth, and consistency. And when I took up a project-based role when I was working in corporate, I thought I would really, really love it because of the connections I would make and the learning aspects. However, the inconsistency of the role really bothered me. And I had to continuously work at bringing consistency into the project work that I did. And when I did that, I really, really loved it. But when the work didn't feel consistent, which, let's be honest, when it comes to special projects is like 90% of the time, I felt incredibly stressed and overwhelmed. So let's look at the next part of authenticity, which is how you want to express yourself. So often, so often, I have discussions with clients about them feeling like they have to force a certain persona at work, like having to always be professional, and so not being able to talk about being a mother, or not openly being able to say that they went on a silent yoga retreat on the weekend, or potentially, crying in bathrooms so that people only kind of saw the well put together side of them. Expressing oneself is not just about what we say, but it also comes through in the clothes that we wear and our actions. So say you love brightly colored clothes and expressive clothes, but you kind of feel like your office is more like a 50 Shades of Grey type of situation. You might feel hesitant to dress authentically and have to tone down your style by kind of restricting yourself to a colorful pair of shoes or earrings. If we feel like if we kind of feel like there's certain restrictions are in place in social settings, whether that social setting be like a work setting or a personal setting, it's so natural that we try to kind of hide parts of ourselves that don't fit into those expectations. And I think that kind of comes back to what Katie and Cara were talking about earlier about that comfort, or feeling uncomfortable by kind of being ourselves. So the problem is that hiding or changing a part of ourselves takes an incredible amount of energy, which leaves us feeling super exhausted. It also creates a space between our authentic selves and others. And so we actually feel disconnected. By being authentic, we can rather step into this effortless power and connection that comes only from you just being you. So by understanding that you are a totally unique being, and I really hate to be cheesy about this, so I apologize in advance, but you are 1 in a billion. Statistically, there is no one exactly like you. Even if you're a twin, there is no one. And only when you are truly authentic can you share all of you with the world. And that is the space where we live with purpose and joy. So true happiness is found when you write your story based on knowing yourself, accepting yourself for who you are, and sharing your gifts on your own terms. Now, it is easier to express your authentic self when you feel like you're in a space that embraces and supports them. So again, start to notice moments when you feel comfortable to express yourself, and bring in aspects of those moments into situations where you feel less authentic. Note, I'm not just talking about work here. This could also be moments where, I don't know, if you're at a wine bar with friends or skydiving, whatever or wherever you feel truly yourself. So true authenticity does not have to do with anyone else. It doesn't have to do with what they're doing. It doesn't have to do with what they're thinking. It only has to do with you and who you want to be. So, in summary, authenticity is about knowing who you are at your core. And how do you know who you are? You take the time to listen, explore, and learn about who you are. Kind of like you would with a new love interest, or something like that, where you notice your likes and dislikes. You notice your feelings or how you react to certain situations. Notice your silly quirks or strange habits that you have. Get curious about yourself. Learn about yourself. And then accept and love who you are. Excuse me. So know you are unique, and that you're bringing something special to the world by literally being yourself. And lastly, know how you want to share your gifts with the world. Exploring what feels right to you with curiosity and a mastery mindset. And we'll talk about a mastery mindset later. So potentially noticing moments where you would like to actually share your gifts more and kind of grow into that space. So as we kind of wrap up authenticity, who would like to share something that kind of has come up for them as I've been talking, or that really stuck out to them from the last 10 or 15 minutes, or what Katie and Cara had to share in the beginning?
May I? Hi. Something that Katie said at the beginning about, the not wanting to be a chameleon. And I think personally with authenticity, I think I am. But I think in a way, sometimes the corporate world is trying to bash it out of me.
Mm-hmm.
I was even told once that I shouldn't speak in figures of speech, kind of innocent terms like, don't over egg the pudding when we're spending too long on a piece of work, or something like that. And a boss actually sat me down once and said, you use all these figures of speech and all these metaphors. And I heard that and I think, oh, should I be stopping that? But then I think the flip side of that is all you ever hear is all this corporate chat, write the storyboard when actually it's just a Word document. And, what's the so what of the PowerPoint slide, and all this kind of stuff really grates on me. And I think, isn't it nicer to have a wider variety and say something that's innocuous that just comes naturally to you? I don't know, it's just an observation I have, and I just wondered what people thought about that.
Yeah, thank you so much for sharing. I think so often people are told to kind of go back into their box, or told how to express themselves, especially kind of in the corporate space. And I think, for me personally, it's by you bringing that in brings color, brings fun, right, into the workplace. And so often, potentially, exactly, your boss meant it from, a learning opportunity, or, or they felt that you needed to be more professional. But there are potentially people within your team that feel totally differently about that. There could be people that love it, that also are like, oh, thank goodness she didn't use, I don't know, that strategic word that everyone seems to be using, that everyone's sick of. So it is interesting how sometimes, other people do have an opinion. And one of the things that we learn in coaching is that sometimes, actually most of the time, actually all of the time, your opinion about someone else says way more about something about you than it does about the other person. So potentially, and I don't know your boss, I don't know the situation, but maybe your boss feels like they can't communicate in a fun and engaging way. And so
that's for sure.
You know what I mean? So then they're noticing that strength in you. And because potentially of their own insecurity, it's something that they feel like can't happen. So I think it's always important, especially when you get feedback, is to really be honest with yourself about it. And exactly like Dorothy said, is this something that I do want to take on board? You don't have to take all feedback. I'm not saying go and dress in your swimsuits and prance around the office. I'm sure you'll get some feedback if you did that. But what I'm saying is, really think about, is that who I want to be in the office? Because I think so often we take feedback at face value, and it's but is that who we want to be? And I think that comes back to knowing yourself. Are you the person that wants to bring fun and enjoyment and that type of communication into your workspace? And if it is, then potentially maybe that feedback, while you've heard it and processed it, you can consciously choose whether you take that on board or don't take that on board. But a lovely share. Thank you very much for sharing. I'm going to keep going because I'm so nervous we're going to run out of time at the end. But if anyone has anything else, we should have time at the end to kind of keep chatting. So if you did have something that you wanted to share, please keep it in mind, and there'll be time at the end, I'm sure. So now I want to dive into confidence. So similarly to when we started talking about authenticity, let's start by looking at a couple of questions in relation to confidence. So surprise, surprise, it's exactly the same 3 questions as we had earlier, except literally the word is confidence. That's, authenticity has been switched out. So I'm going to give us again 3 minutes just to think about, why do you want to be confident? When are you most confident? And what does confidence look and feel like to you? Okay, so who would like to share their thoughts about any of those questions or what came up for you? I think let's just have one person, because again, so we can make sure we get through everything.
Grace, I can offer something. So
Sure.
confidence is I feel like it's about, when you have confidence, you would connect more with people. Think about going on stage, think about networking events, it's also, I think, about growth, because you gain new confidence every time you mastered something, a skill set as well. I mean, I'm into climbing, so you go for harder and harder mountains and things like that. So you gain confidence in your skills, you gain confidence in yourself. I was not a confident person when I was a child, probably going red right now, but it's just something that you learn. So I do feel like it's something very much in line with growth. And it changes. When are you most comfortable? It changes with every new level.
I love that. Beautiful. Thank you so much for sharing, Susan. I feel like you've read what I was just about to say. Come now. Now I have nothing to add. What am I going to talk about for the next 10 minutes? No, you're spot on. Absolutely spot on. And I love that connection piece. I've actually, not many people talk about connection when it comes to confidence. And I think you're so on the money with, I think people are drawn to confident people, when they have a genuine confidence. I don't know, have you ever been in a room where someone walked in and they just had like a genuine confidence about them and an air about them, and everyone almost like turns to look at them, you know, as they come in. There is something quite magnetic about it. So really loved that connection piece. And growth and learning is definitely is literally the key that I'm going to chat about now. So I'm so glad that you've done a great job in kind of like doing this little introduction now for me. So thank you so much. I was going to say, don't put these questions away, you know, kind of dig into them the same way that we kind of did with authenticity, you know, look at each one, dig into what's motivating you. When do you feel confident? Like Susan was saying, like when she's rock climbing, she feels confidence, and what does that kind of bring? How can you use that in other ways of your life? So if you look up confidence in a dictionary, you'll realize that there's actually a whole lot of different ways to define it. So I'm going to highlight two. So the Merriam-Webster definition is a feeling or belief that one will act in a right, proper, or effective way. So this is kind of the most commonly understood definition of confidence, which really focuses in on a future event or action. So often people think about confidence in relation to something very specific. So when you felt confident that you could complete a piece of work, or if you had the confidence to speak up in a meeting or ask a difficult question. But there's actually another definition from the Merriam-Webster dictionary that I wanted to highlight, and that is a feeling or consciousness of one's power. So you'll notice that this is a much wider reaching definition of confidence. It's not referring to a specific task or event, but rather a general feeling that one has. And this is the definition that I'm going to kind of focus in on today as we're chatting. And the reason for that is because of the definition's broadness. So it means that you don't have to focus on building confidence in one specific area of your life, for instance, public speaking, but rather all areas of your life. And Susan touched on this when she was talking earlier. So this definition looks at your overall level of confidence rather than a specific situational confidence. So I had actually never really thought about confidence in that way before I studied to become a coach. So I'd always focused on confidence in a very specific and kind of siloed, you know, way of thinking about it, rather than looking at my confidence as a whole and working on my total confidence. So something else that I learned in my coaching journey, and I'm going to share my screen quickly because I just know that visually it helps sometimes to have a bit of a visual. So something else that I learned during my coaching journey was about cognitive behavioral theory. And what that means is that our thoughts drive our feelings, which drive our actions, which reaffirm or reshape our thoughts. And in this and many other definitions of confidence, it's noted that confidence is a feeling. So then based on cognitive behavioral theory, confidence is based on our thoughts, which means that our confidence cannot be found externally, but it's rather shaped by our own thinking. So it is always 100% within our control, which is an incredibly empowering thought and a potentially terrifying thought. So recognizing that there's this overall confidence combined with the realization that confidence has nothing to do with the external world and everything to do with how we feel was really like a huge mind blow for me. I was like, what is everyone talking about here? And it was actually a major turning point for me on my own confidence journey. Let me stop sharing my screen because we don't need that anymore. So a way to become confident in wider situations is to become aware of all the ways in which you are currently successful. So this means really taking the time to understand and assess your current strengths and recognize how those can be transferred into other life situations. So it's really about developing a habit of being clear on what you do well and being able to apply that skill. And in order to do this, it's important that you don't focus on a specific experience, but rather the underlying trait that you demonstrated. So don't focus on the fact, and I feel like I can use this because Susan used this, that you're a great rock climber. Focus on the underlying trait that makes you an amazing rock climber. You know, maybe it's because you're a great problem solver. And so when you find yourself in a bit of a tricky situation and, you know, you're trying to work out what to do with your hands, you can calmly think through the problem. Being a good problem solver is not just something that'll help you when you're rock climbing. It'll be something that you can take into all aspects of your life. So when I talk to my clients about confidence, we talk about the IPEC concept of mastery, and this is also something that Susan touched on. It's mastering things, this mastery orientation. It just really focuses on continuously learning and growing and kind of being the best that you can be. So it focuses on you as an individual becoming more skilled. So there's no bad outcome from a situation, no matter what happens, because you'll be learning something and moving closer to mastering it. So if you come from a headspace that no matter what happens, you can't actually fail because you're always learning and moving forwards, the amount of stress that will come with certain situations will greatly decrease. And it'll give you more energy that you can actually put into the situation at hand. So it's almost like a self-fulfilling prophecy. By decreasing your stress, you have more energy and more capability to make the moment or the situation at hand successful. So often we are so busy guessing what's happening in other people's heads and trying to preempt their judgments that we forget to be present, to listen and focus on ourselves. So the key points for confidence are: get into the habit of recognizing your current strengths, and then apply those strengths to other situations where you feel like you are lacking confidence. So Susan, I don't know, potentially maybe something where you feel like you're lacking confidence, and I'm totally pulling this out of the air because I don't know Susan, but maybe Susan wants to work on her presenting skills. Well, being a problem solver will be incredible for your presenting skills, because no matter what situation you find yourself in, you'll be able to adapt and, you know, make progress. And then lastly, come from a view of mastery. Regardless of the outcome, I am moving closer to being confident. Okay, so now we're going to bring authenticity and confidence together. So by taking time to know who you are and how you want to show up in the world, you'll have a clearer understanding of who you want to be and what you want from life. So using this information, you'll be able to be more decisive in your decision making because you know where you want to head to. This means you'll understand why you are doing what you're doing, which also helps to keep you motivated. And that's what we were talking about earlier. So couple this with having a mastery orientation and focusing on your strongest personal traits, you'll be able to step into your authentic confidence. So let me share a quick example, as I know we're running out of time, but let me share a quick example, personal example of this. So I remember being told in one of my very first managers, Grace, you need to be more confident, or you at least need to pretend that you're confident, and then one day you'll kind of feel it. And with hindsight, I think this was meant to be some type of like woman empowerment speech. So I do appreciate, the intention that was behind it, but it really didn't turn out as planned. And at the time I was working as an accountant in Big Four, and someone suggested that I get involved in presenting training to boost my confidence. So that was the day that I decided that presenting training would lead to me having confidence. So fast forward 5 years, and I was still forcing myself to sign up to present internal staff trainings. And people would always ask me, they're like, how do you have the confidence to present? And I used to laugh because I was like, no, the whole reason I'm signing up is because I still don't have the confidence in this area. Anyways, on one particular occasion, I signed up to present and was given some like super technical topic because I'd presented often and people thought I was confident. I had no experience with this technical update, and I was absolutely terrified. Like, I actually remember thinking to myself, I should just say no, because I just didn't feel comfortable. But I had recently received feedback saying Grace needs to work on her confidence. And so I decided, well, this was the moment where I would show them that I had it. So I pushed through. Every inch of my body did not want to present that day. I remember actually feeling physically sick. I remember standing in front of a room full of people and my mind going blank. Blank to the point that I actually thought that I couldn't actually even read anymore. I'd kind of forgotten how to read. My mind fogged over and I totally messed it up. I could barely get a word out. Like, I can't even remember what I said. I feel like my mind just blocked it out. I remember one of the partners actually stepping in at one stage because they could see how much I was struggling. Anyways, I walked out of that room with my confidence totally shattered, and I didn't present at that company ever again. It actually makes me feel quite sick just even talking about it. And it's taken me years to actually feel like I can talk about it. But I learned from that experience. I learned too many lessons from that experience about trusting my gut, staying true to who I am, saying no, and confidence. So fast forward a few years, why do I still present if it's something that I battle with so much? I have asked myself that question a million times throughout the years. Even now, when I was thinking about what I was going to put together for this session, I asked myself that very same question. And it boils down to this: authentic confidence. So I know who I am. I'm Grace. So I'm a person whose top values are connection, growth, and consistency. So my mission is to help other people find the power within themselves to live the best lives that they can. I said yes to speaking today, not because I have confidence in my presentation abilities, but because I have confidence in the fact that saying yes to this opportunity, regardless of the fear that I feel, aligns exactly with my values and who I want to be in the world, and how I want to share that with the world. Connecting, learning, and inspiring. And that for me is authentic confidence. I still feel all the emotions and the fear that I did when I was in my accounting days, and that's okay. But I confidently know that I'm exactly where I'm meant to be, doing exactly what I want to be doing. And as a bonus, mastering my presentation skills along the way. So I hope today has given you some thoughts or ideas or got you thinking about how you can move forward with your own authentic confidence. I would love for you guys to share, your thoughts, your stories, your comments or questions. In fact, maybe just before we do that, who's willing to kind of share something that really stood out for them about authentic confidence, or something that they're really going to kind of take away from the session? Because I think so often, we learn from, other people and what kind of stood out to them.
I think it's, oh, go on, Dorothy, you go.
I was going to say, sorry, I think that the bit about thoughts, feelings, actions, going back around to thoughts, and the fact that confidence is something that you cannot be external, resonated with me. And I remember when, well, I'm doing STEMettes again, helping young girls in STEM subjects and mentoring them. And we had a group session, albeit on Zoom, where you met lots of different girls on the first evening. And I think I must have met 15 girls. And at least 10 of them, I wish I'd taken a tally, at least 10 of them said to me, I want you to help me with my confidence. And I came away thinking, isn't that really tragic that they're all saying the same thing? And I was also thinking, why do they say that? Is it because they've been told that? And I sometimes think back to my own experience in getting a really quite good school report when I changed schools when I was 12. And at the bottom it said lacks confidence. My dad shouted at me. That helped. So why is it such a repeat thing? And the fact that it cannot be external and it has to be from within is just, I think, helpful, but as you say, Grace, kind of maybe unhelpful and scary in the first instance, but it's just something you've got to control yourself.
Yeah, thank you so much for sharing, Dorothy. Yeah, I totally agree. I think when I think back to myself, and that's what I love about why do you want to be confident? Because for me, people had just told me that I needed to be it. So I was like, I don't think I even stopped to kind of like actually think about it. I was just like, oh no, but everyone's telling me that I need to be confident. And it's like, okay, yeah, but like, so what? Like, why do you want to be confident? Because like everyone's kind of like, oh no, but that's what you need to be. Why do you need to be confident? You don't need to be confident if you don't want to. And I think for me, that was like a really big change. And I'm definitely seeing it like with a lot of women that I work with. I mean, I work on confidence, literally. That's one of the main things. And so often it's, being told that they need to be confident or looking for it somewhere. It's like, is it hidden somewhere underneath a rock out there in the world? And it's like, no, it isn't. It's I think potentially people also misunderstand confidence. And so, you're looking in all the wrong places, which doesn't help, because then you're feeling unconfident about confidence, which becomes this whole self-fulfilling, prophecy. But it was interesting what Susan spoke about earlier, where our actions still reaffirm our thoughts, right? So rock climbing, having moments where you feel empowered or you feel confident, even just knowing what that feels like, I think is helpful in terms of understanding and finding it, because then you know what you're looking for a little bit more. And I think that also helps you with knowing that it's in you. And I think so often people are like, the language that they use around confidence is you either have it or you don't. And that's also not true or not helpful. It's like, so often I say to myself, I'm on the journey of learning to improve my confidence, because everyone has confidence to some degree already. It's something that's already there. It's just about kind of working it out and finding out how it feels authentic to you to express it in the world. And I think that's also sometimes where people are like, oh, I don't want to be arrogant. And I'm like, yes, but if you truly listen to who you want to be, you'll know if you're being arrogant versus confident. It's a lovely point, Dorothy.
So I'm just trying to develop. I did have a thought. I'm just trying to develop what I'm trying to say. So I'll just say it before. just
go for it.
Try and work it out. We live in a culture, a corporate culture. Maybe our parents taught us this, to always do better. If you're promoting and going for things, and obviously you need a certain level of confidence to do that. And you think that confidence is something that you pick up along the way. They don't teach this in schools. They don't teach authenticity in schools, because when you actually connect to self, which is what you're sharing here, and that's the biggest takeaway, connecting to self and really understanding who you are, that's going to be your driving force to go and wherever you want to go. And that confidence will shine from within once you know that's your truth. And so I really appreciate you sharing all of that today, Grace.
Oh, thank you very much, Susan. I 100% agree with you. And I was going to say, don't even get me started on schools and confidence and authenticity. How much time do you guys have to chat? but 100% on the money. And this should be something that we have conversations with our children about, or our nieces and our nieces and nephews. I think with all children, is kind of stepping into who you are. And I was going to say, like, it actually made me smile when you were talking, because I remember thinking to myself, I'll be confident when I get promoted. And then I got promoted, and then I didn't feel confident. And I was like, oh, but hang on, wait, this was meant to be the thing that made me feel confident. So it's also, I think, the way we think about confidence is like a bit backwards, because we attach it to different things that actually aren't. It's like, if you want to be confident, work on your confidence. Don't work on getting promoted. Don't work on becoming a public speaker. Don't work on, work on confidence, if that's what you want to develop. If that's what you want to develop, and knowing why you want to do it. Lovely point, Susan. Katie, can we hear you? Katie. No, she's gone. Oh, no, terrible news. Well, I know it is top of the hour, and I know that a lot of you guys